This is question number 2 of the June 2019 sample assessment paper 1. The question says that a group of 4 students investigate their pulse rates at rest and after 2 minutes of exercise. The table shows their results. Here they have given us the pulse rate at rest for the students 1 to 4 and the pulse rate after 2 minutes of exercise in BPM, which is beats per minute. Part A asks us to draw a bar chart to show the pulse rates of each student at rest and after 2 minutes of exercise. This is a 4-marker question. It means that they want us to draw boards for each student to draw 2 bar graphs showing one at the rest and one after 2 minutes of exercise. All right. So here I have plotted the graph over here. It is a bar graph. Since it is a bar graph, we need to be very careful with the scales. Okay. Here I have labeled the x-axis with the number of students, which is the dependent variable, and the pulse rate per beats per minute, which is the dependent variable, just changing. I have chosen a suitable scale over here on the base of 20 per interval. All right, and here I have plotted 2 graphs for each, one at rest after 2 minutes. For each of them, for student 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. So a very important point for students is that whenever there's a question of a graph, it is very important to use most of the canvas space of the graph they have supplied you. There are many examiners who actually cut marks for this, for not using the graph canvas space as much as possible. Like completely, they want us to completely utilize the space. Hence, whenever you see a graph question, it's very important for you to actually use maximum of the space as much as you can, so that your data is much more distributed and hence it is easier and more reliable. Here it is 78, and for after 2 minutes it's at 142. For student 2 it is at 86 for at rest, and it is at 86 over here, and 168 for after 2 minutes, and it is over here, and it is the highest. And also for student 3 it is 81 at rest over here and 157 over here for after 2 minutes. For student 4 it is at 78 over here and 168 after 2 minutes right over here, which is also the highest. So as you can see in the data of the table, student 1 and student 4, they have the same pulse rate at rest. All right. And for after 2 minutes, student 2 and 4, they have the same pulse rate in BPM after 2 minutes over here. So if we are done with the graph, let's move on to the next part. Part B, it states that calculate the mean increase in pulse rate after 2 minutes of exercise. So it says to calculate the mean increase in pulse rate after 2 minutes. Hence, we need to look back at the table. So if we look carefully at the table, we have 2 sets of data, one for at rest and one for after 2 minutes over here. So since they ask us for the increase in rate of pulse rate, so we can find out the increase, how much the pulse rate has increased from the rest state to the 2 minutes of exercise state. Hence, we need to calculate a mean, which is we are going to add all the values and divide them by 4, since there are 4 students over here. But the values will not be the direct values from here. There will be differences between the rate after 2 minutes and the rate at rest. Hence, let's solve this. All right. So here I have subtracted the value after 2 minutes from the value at rest for each of the 4 students and added them together, divided by 4 to calculate the mean. The answer comes as 78, which is 78 BPM. Hence, the mean increase in pulse rate is equal to 78 BPM. All right. Moving on to part C. Part C says that suggest why the value obtained for the mean increase in pulse rate may be unreliable. Okay, so for an experiment, it is very important for us to check what the data they have provided us, since it must be repeated for accuracy, since accuracy is a matter, precision is a matter, and it is very important so that we have a record of data, a record of set data, so that we can control some variables that our experiment does not become unreliable. Okay. For accuracy, a very important point is that, as I said, that the experiment must be repeated under the same condition a lot of times, perhaps several times, like 5 to 6 times, so that the data is quite reliable for us to rely on, depend on. All right. So I have answered here that because pulse rate recorded after exercise is not repeated at rest or at the following exercise. Okay. So moving back to this table, as I said, repeating the data is very important. Repeating means carrying out the experiment under the same conditions for the same type of exercise or for at rest several times in the similar manner so that we obtain a data. So if there is a mistake in recording pulse or maybe mistake in calculating the time or something, it is going to be eliminated when we calculate the mean, because the repeated data has a lot of repeated collections over there, a lot of collections over there from which we can spot the anomaly very clearly. All right. And also, if you can see over here, they have provided us only the information about the pulse rate at rest and pulse rate after 2 minutes of exercise. They have not provided us any data of the type of exercise or the age of the students, the weight of the students, or even the gender of the students. Hence, you can say that this data may not be as much reliable. This experiment um, might not be as accurate as we expected to be. All right. So let's move on to the next part. Okay. So part D says that gives three possible reasons why the increase in pulse rate after 2 minutes of exercise is different for each student. So as I have said earlier, that when we are looking at an experiment, it is very important for us to notice if the external information, which is the age, mass, height, or perhaps the type of activity that is being carried out, or the number of times the experiment is repeated, we need to notice these to know the accuracy of the experiment. But since in this experiment they haven't provided us any of these data, starting from the gender, the mass of each of the students, they have not provided us if they're of the same age or even if they are doing the same activity. Hence, if the three students or the four students, as there are four students over here, if each student is not doing the same activity but different, it means that their pulse rates will be different since their metabolism rate will be different. And also, we do not know if these students are free of any, probably any diseases or any disorders which might indirectly involve in affecting the results of this experiment. Hence, they have provided us no information. So we can list down three of the errors that they have made over here. So let's answer this question. So I have listed over here the gender differences, the difference in body mass, the difference in exercises carried out. All right. So if the students, if their gender is not same, if the difference in the body mass, their weight, or probably their height or age is different, or if the different exercises carried out, if the students are not performing the same exercise, then it is definitely, it can be said that they are not going to have the same pulse rate because they are not being, or they are not maybe doing the same activity, or maybe they are doing the same activity, but because of their difference in their body, they are not having the same pulse rate. All right. Let's move on to the last part, which is part A. It says describe a method that the students could use to measure their pulse rate. Okay, here I have mentioned a method, which is place two fingers gently on your wrist or your neck and count for 15 seconds. All right. One more thing I forgot to mention is that place the fingers gently on the wrist or neck, except the thumb. So when we are basically measuring our pulse rate, we must use the pointer finger and the middle finger to press it on the wrist or the neck where there is artery and count for 15 seconds, except the thumb, because the thumb might not give you the accurate reading. All right, so we have reached the end of this question.